Recently in New York, just a few days ago, I got a call from Rabbi Avram Cook, who leads and teaches a group of students from Tel Aviv and Ben-Gurion University. He has a one-year course, two-year course on Yadut, teaching them Judaism. These are students, boys and girls, who come from secular families, but they have a very strong Jewish identity. And he called me if I'd be willing to speak to the group. It was at a moment's notice. And he did come because I said to him that I'm leaving to Israel the next day. And within 2 hours they were there. And he asked me, what will I speak about? And I said to him, I have to see the group before I have a sense of what I'm going to speak about. But when they did come, what I wanted to speak about to them was who are they? Do they know who they are? From where do we come from? And because we descend from such special roots, such pure seed, such holy antecedents, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, our holy patriarchs. Therefore, it's important for them to know who they were and who they are. Because if we have an understanding who they are, who they were, then we have a sense of who we can be. And I spoke for over an hour to them. And I spoke about Avram Avinu, Avram Ivri, Avram the Hebrew. That's the way it's translated in the secular. But literally it means Avram Ivri came from the other side of the river, came from Mesopotamia, and he crossed over into Canaan. God said to him, Lech lecha mi'artzecha, leave your land, your homeland, your birthplace, your family, and go to the land that I will tell you to go, and you'll merit multiple benefits. Children, renown, wealth. And Avram went, and he withstood that test. However, Chazal tell us, Chachamenu Zichronav Livrocha tell us, that O'Ivri means Hu me'ever echod, v'chol ha'olam me'ever ha'shenik. Avram single-handedly took on the world, and he changed the face of the map, spiritually speaking, from a pagan world into a monotheistic world. The Torah tells us that even before he came to Choron, before he came to Canaan, and he came to Choron, the Torah tells us about how Nefesh Asher Osa b'Choron, the souls that he made in Choron. As Rashi cites Chazal, the Midrash, Avram Megairis Ha'anoshim, Avram converted the men, V'Sorai, Megairis is Ha'anoshim, and Sori Menu, she converted the women to monotheism. And as the Rambam writes, there were tens of thousands of followers of Avram and Sori Menu who came together with them. And this was his representation. And he impacted on the world. How could one man take on the world single-handedly? The Jewish people throughout history, in number, have been the smallest people. What we've endured, what we experienced, the upheavals, the displacement, the persecutions, the discrimination, the destructions, whether it was the first Beis HaMikdash, the second Beis HaMikdash, the Crusades, the pogroms, Chmielnicki, Yimach Shmo v'Zichro, most of Eastern Europe was decimated, annihilated. Most recently, Hitler, Yimach Shmo v'Zichro. Again, our numbers were small even then. But despite all this, we always rebound. We always come back spiritually and materially to reestablish ourselves. The question is, how is it possible? Any other nation who would have experienced even an iota of what we have been through would have disappeared and assimilated through the acculturation of the nations that took them over. But the Jew retains his identity, and we are always known as a religion, not as a cultural people. It's something which is miraculous. Where does it all emanate from? Where does it descend from? And what is it rooted? I discussed with them that today the genetic makeup of a human being is known as the DNA of a human being. The DNA of a Jew is different than the DNA of any other nation or race. And the Jew, whether the Jew is Ashkenazic, Sephardic, Yemenite, the DNA is identical. We all emanate from the same source. We may have different customs, we may look slightly differently, we may speak with different accents, but the core, the essence of what we are is identical, because we descend from the same source. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are holy patriarchs and matriarchs, the Dalet Imos, the four matriarchs of the Jewish people. The Talmud tells us, Chazal tell us, that there's certain characteristics which are unique and innate and embedded in the spiritual gene pool of every Jew. The three characteristics are Rachmanim, Baishonim, Gomli, Chasodim. Jews have a unique level of compassion, mercy. Baishonim literally means shame. There is shame, or in other words, conscience. A Jew cannot behave a certain way because there's a conscience, there's a shame. And that brings with it responsibility. We're responsible because if we don't assume that responsibility, it's shameful. And there's Gomli Chasodim, doing acts of loving kindness. Per capita, it's known that there's no more philanthropic people as Klal Yisrael shows, the Jewish people. Even a person, an ordinary Jew, what he gives, whether it's the Gufo b'Mamona, whether it's his physical involvement or his material contribution, surpasses anything which exists anywhere else. Where does it come from? Because this is what the Avos HaKadoshim, our holy patriarchs, this is what they were. And we, descending from them, we have and possess that genealogy in the physical and spiritual sense of what they were. And this carries on, whether it's compassion, mercy, conscience, shame, or doing acts of loving kindness. There was an issue many years ago in Israel when the Ethiopians or the Falashas came from Ethiopia to Israel, and they believed and they claimed that they were Jews, and they were persecuted for living and identifying as Jews. But the question was, halachically, were they really Jewish? And there was halachic controversy. And there was a great Torah giant in the United States by the name of Rabbi Feinstein, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzaddik Livrocha, of blessed memory, who had said they definitely are not Jews. This is his grasp and understanding of the Torah's entirety, understood they are not, and they have to be converted. Others held they don't have to be converted, but a conversion is only valid only if there's an acceptance. One's committed to fulfill the commandments of the Torah. So the compromise was the Rabbanut, the Israel Rabbinate of Israel required them to convert, but they did not have to have a re-acceptance of the mitzvos, the commandments. But going through the process of conversion, they had to. The mikvah, immersion in the ritual pool, and letting of blood, which is the circumcision. A number of years after this controversy took place, there was an article in the New York Times science section where they'd taken the DNA of various segments of populations, and they took the DNA of Negroes, Americans, Africans, Ethiopians, the Falashas. The DNA was identical. There was no difference between the DNA of one and the other. It's not that they claimed, as Haile Selassie said, that they sent from the Queen of Sheba, who converted and who fathered the children by King Solomon, but rather they are part and parcel of that same segment of the population. But Jews, who were always Jews, regardless of their ethnic background, Sephardic, Ashkenazic, Yemenite, the DNA is identical. The fabric is the identical fabric. And the Talmud tells us that if you come across a Jew who's not compassionate, who has no conscience, who does not have the attribute or the characteristic of charity, philanthropy, doing acts of chesed, love, living kindness, you have to suspect that he's not an original Jew, that he's a convert, and therefore he doesn't possess the innate qualities of the natural born Jew.